Hi, Bradley. Nice to see you.
Hi there, nice to see you as well, Anna. How are you getting on?
Good, thanks. And you?
Good. Oh, hi, Anne and
Hi.
Helen. So all our speakers are here. Fantastic, and Sarah. Brilliant. We'll give
I was just
everybody what.
hiding in the background.
Oh, it's really great. I'm so enjoying the day. I've been really enjoying all of the speakers, and yeah, it's love. I think the whole, and I said that, the application of those real life, the illustrations, I think, bring to life the work of the strategy. So I think it's flowing really well.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much. I mean, that's perfect timing to bring everybody back. So, welcome back, everybody, from lunch. I hope everyone managed to get something nutritious and sustainable to eat. So I will just quickly share my screen so you can see all the speakers, and then again, we'll bring it back to the camera setup. So I'm also just going to give everyone a bit of an overview of what we've covered up to this point, because it has been a day full of exceptional speakers. So we started off with our keynote speeches from every level within the city. So from our elected official, Councillor Khan, from our city leader, Dr. Justin Varney, and from our on-the-ground leader within the food system team, Sarah Pullen. We then had a brief session on what the strategy actually was and what it is, and the work streams that go within the strategy. And hopefully you're starting to see a bit of a pattern with our speakers and how they represent the work and the incredible minds that are already working across those 10 streams. Then after break, we came back to hear some of the outstanding work of our Birmingham food legends, including the Active Wellbeing Society and Incredible Surplus, Kushunga Gardens, the Villa Foundation, and Lifestyle Medicine. And we just broke for lunch, and we're back from lunch now, and hopefully you've had some time to think of some questions, and you've got some sustenance in you to get you going for the questions for this incredibly important session with our system leaders, our policymakers, our change drivers, our educators. And similar to the setup in the last section, what I'm going to do is introduce the panel member. The panel member will then have 10 minutes to do their section, and then we'll introduce the next one. They'll get their 10 minutes. And then after all of the panel members have had their 10 minutes, we'll have a question and answer section where we'll be able to open up the floor. So I will stop sharing and come back to the room. And our first speaker is going to be Dr. Helen Onyeaka, who is an associate professor with a specialist focus in food microbiology and food safety at the University of Birmingham. Helen is an industrial microbiologist with over 25 years of experience in both academia and in the industry itself. She's one of the leading voices in food microbiology and food safety in Birmingham, providing training to a variety of different specialists, training our environmental health officers, our food inspection officers, public health staff, and so many more. She also has some incredible LinkedIn posts, which Sarah made me aware of, where you share experiences and knowledge for everybody to be able to tap into, which is so useful. And we've recently been lucky to have Helen come join our food safety and standards work stream, which will be taking place next week. And we'll be talking a bit more about that in the house section. So yeah, just welcome, Helen. Oh, I think I'm...
Can you hear me? Well, thank you, everyone. It's been an amazing day. I mean, an eye-opener to what is happening in Birmingham. So like I've been introduced, I'm Helen Onyeaka, an associate professor here at the University of Birmingham. So my journey in food microbiology started back in Nigeria, where I had a degree in industrial microbiology. That was where the seed was planted and my passion. Then I came over to the UK. I've done my postgraduate degrees in food related disciplines. And one thing I like that gives me so much passion when I think about food and microorganisms is that microbes can be, good, bad, or ugly. So we'll talk about being good. We can exploit microorganisms for food production, for recycling nutrients, They can be bad in the sense that they spoil food, and there's a lot of food wastage going on. And they can be ugly because they can cause foodborne illness and even death. So I am really, really passionate about spreading out being a voice to talk about how food safety is quite important. We all like to eat. I love eating and I like cooking as well. But I like to go to a restaurant, eat, go home, and it's safe. Not go back and then I'm doing number 2 all the time. So to me, it's quite important that food safety is really preached or talked about. So as an educator, I do a lot of teaching and also research. And I'll tell you a bit more about my research as well, because I get passionate about it. But what I wanted to say today, I was so excited, honestly. Forgive me if I sound too excited, because our shared ambition today was channeled through the lens of Birmingham food, system strategy. This vision, I must tell you, really aligns so well with my personal and professional aspiration. I've been thinking about it and I've been meditating on the vision, and it is to create a fair, sustainable, and prosperous food system and economy. Amazing, isn't it? So this vision is we're aiming for a Birmingham where every plate of food represents a choice that is nutritious, that is affordable, and desirable. And safe also, because that's quite important. Safety is very important. So this vision is not just about sustenance, because we eat food because we want to survive and all eat it for pleasure as well. There are many reasons why we eat food. But it's not just about sustenance, but it represents the equity. Everyone has access, irrespective of the station in life, have access to safe, nutritious food. Amazing. So I really felt really compelled to deeply reflect on this vision. And I did. And I dreamt about it, to be honest, And I'm intentional. And I want to be deliberate in my efforts and contribution towards realizing this vision. The reason is together, because this collaboration is so important. Together, we have the potential to elevate our food system, so much so that we will set a good standard that other cities will want to emulate us. They want to know what is happening in Birmingham. Amazing things happening in Birmingham. So I'm so passionate about it. I can go on and on. But let me tell you a little bit about the University of Birmingham. So at the University of Birmingham, we have a very strong team of lecturers in our food safety group, and is led by Lisa Winnell. She's been on since morning, which is amazing to see how dedicated we are. So I manage the program of MSc Food Safety. We also have certificates in higher education in food safety and legislation. We roll out CPD courses on food inspection module and food standards, which is available to people to join, as a CPD. But I don't do that. It's my colleagues, Ian Ferris, that does it with Sally O'Neill and Lisa as well. What I want to really highlight also today is the research we're doing here at the university. So before COVID, just prior to COVID, I set up a couple of years ago, HITA Food Research Center of Excellence with my colleague, Dr. Tagin Muri. I think he's here, I'm not sure. So HITA, what we do, we're actively working to address environmental issues, and we're trying to use innovative approaches to be able to tackle those problems to do with sustainability in the food industry and also safety. So we aim to contribute to sustainable food practices. And I'll tell you a bit more about our research. So we're based here in the University of Birmingham Chemical Engineering Department. So what do we do at HITA? We have a lot of research going on, but I'll share the ones I'm really passionate about. So forgive me if I get too excited. So one of the current research we're doing at the moment is on algae-based flour reformulation, okay, for the baking industry. So watch out for green bread, green cakes. And this deals with food security, because algae, specifically chlorella, it's very easy to produce. You don't need land, you don't need lots of water, you need minimal nutrients to grow them into a large quantity. And the amazing thing, we're trying to metabolically engineer them so they can produce more proteins and vitamins, which is amazing. So we downstream it, produce flour for bakery. So that's really, really good. So this kicks on food security and sustainability and green future, which is amazing. The other thing we're doing also is lots of research on food safety. like antimicrobial peptides for shelf life extension. So microbes, they fight for food, water, and for space within each other. And one of the things they do, which is an implicit factor they have, is they can produce antimicrobials to kill other microorganisms around them. So what we're doing here is to exploit that mechanism, produce lactic acid bacteria in large quantity, extract the bacteriocin, or then use that to extend shelf life in food, either directly in food or in packaging. So what we've done so far is micro-encapsulated and trying to engineer it so it can be released when a pH gets to a certain level, when microorganisms, if they're present and they respire, the pH gets to a certain level, is released. So we're working on that, and it's really coming along amazing. So watch this space for that. The thing we do also in the food safety arena is collaboration with lots of food industries. So right now we have some projects going on, and I'll tell you more about it because I think this project that is going on is just amazing. And it lends to, I mean, I don't want to say what it is until we have finalized it, but it's amazing because we can have a food safety assurance if this works. And we're very positive it's going to work. Another thing we're doing, which is really good, I mean, my colleague, Dr. Tagimiri, is not here, but he, started this project, and it's about super bread. Okay, so we're using ohmic heating to produce bread, and this bread, the way I say, don't repeat it anywhere, is we electrocute the bread. Electrocute it. So pass electricity through the bread, and then you have this amazing bread that cooks in short time, that has a longer shelf life, that is very soft, that is crust free, because quite a lot of crust is wasted. We don't want any wastage. And then guess what? These breads can last up to 4 weeks, 3 weeks without any contamination. I mean, it's amazing. So we'll call it the super bread, but we're still trying to fine-tune that particular process. And hopefully we'll be able to actually eat the bread. I've not eaten the bread yet. We're just, doing all the experiments that go with the bread. So that's amazing. But one other thing we do focus, really strongly on, and we're working with lots of industries, is food waste valorization. So we have been able to work with industries to get, spent grains from the brewery industry, cocoa waste from chocolate factory, and also we're working on eggshells at the moment. And we have been able to, extract bioactive compounds that are very, good, and even cocoa butter from some of those waste, and fiber that can be used for feed, which is really amazing. So we're looking at ways that we can use other innovative technology. So we're not using electricity so much, or we're not wasting energy to extract those bioactive compounds. And we're, at the moment, it's still ongoing, the research. And recently, we were able to, we're sourcing out for spent brewer's yeast. And the idea behind that is we want to produce biodegradable packaging. And then we can then incorporate our bacteriocin into the packaging, which is an additional layer of protection for the food. So imagine, so we're now looking at circular economy, safety, preservation. So that's really amazing. My colleague Tagi and myself were venturing into insect-based and plant-based food as well. So we're looking into that space at the moment, and we have projects hopefully coming up soon in that area. So it's really exciting. And when I think about the fact that the focus of the food system strategy cuts across various aspects of how the wholesome food and food-based formulations in Birmingham and waste, how can we ensure that? I'm just mindful of time. So what we can do at the University of Birmingham, what can we do? So we can adopt some of those advanced food engineering technologies we can use that to assure food safety. For example, we have 2 projects that is really exciting we're working on at the moment. One is a germicide lamp, okay? So what this is like having an LED light. And this light is really been shown to be active, kills bacteria, kills viruses, and mold, which is really amazing. But we're validating that, lamp here. And imagine if that works, we can encourage, food industries to use that as an additional layer of food protection. I like to have the, the light, change my light bulbs, to that light, and voila, increase safety, even in my house, to ensure there's no mold growing anywhere. So it lends itself to amazing application. We're also looking at validating another product, which is a biofilm detector. You just shine the light and you see biofilms. We all know about biofilms. They are really amazing. community of microorganisms. So if you do have plaques in your teeth, you know what I'm talking about. It's difficult to remove. So biofilms play a very important role in the food in terms of contamination. If they are dislodged, they can then go onto the food and cause problems. They are found in pipes. So imagine if this lamp were able to validate it. This can help in terms of food safety assurance. So we talked about earlier in the morning, talked about food hygiene rating schemes. My colleague Lisa, we know, has done quite a lot of research in that area, and she's looked at how, the disparity between hygiene rating in certain areas. She's going to publish an article there. So we can train and retrain food inspectors on current challenges with, within the food sectors and pathogens of concern and harmful food practices. So just to round up, because I know I get very passionate. So what can we bring on board? We can bring training. Okay. So recently, Lisa and Ian Ferris, they're part of the food safety team. They ran a training for, a collaborative training for catering for allergens. So we're able to do things like that. I've done a training in the past about applied food microbiology for the enforcement officers. And we talked about different things like ATP kits, what does that mean? Biofilm, what does that mean? And a few other things where they really wanted to know, because I put out, what do you want to know in this arena in terms of food microbiology? And we'll put together a training so we can do things like that. And I also designed a particular training program with collaboration with CIEH and FSA, and it's about sous vide way of cooking, which is the latest way of cooking, because everyone is about minimally processed food. So when you talk about minimally processed food, that brings its own challenges in terms of safety, because no one knows. So we're able to train people, just so the inspectors, and we went to England and Wales, all the councils, training the food inspectors what to look out for and what to be mindful for. So another thing we can bring aboard is research and development. We do quite a lot of research on safety of reformulated food. That is one of the pillars we talked about today, in terms of food reformulation. When you reformulate a food, then you change the food chemistry. Microbes can potentially contaminate the food they would not normally contaminate. For example, you reduce the salt, you reduce the water, you're changing the intrinsic properties of that food. So microbes can contaminate. So we're doing quite a lot of research in this area about how safe is it when you start playing with the food chemistry and changing your formulation. So that is something we can bring on board for the food industries. Then also technologies. My colleague Tagi Miri does a lot of training on novel food technologies, like omic heating, pulse field, and stuff like that. So how can we implement that in producing food safely without all the over-processing? Because people are comfortable with over-processing food because you lose all the nutrients. So there are novel technologies that can be implemented in a systematic way to ensure food processing. So finally, I promise finally, we also contribute to, policy guidance. We have contributed to Right to Food, and recently we're working on promoting food security through sustainable food systems and food waste valorization. Thank you so much. I look forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Helen. And yep, of course, definitely the discussion is going to be some of the things that you brought up, some of the innovations on the front line. It ties in very nicely to what I expect for the future, and to see the green bread of the algae bread and the electrocuted bread as well, which is exciting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Anna. So Anna Taylor is the Executive Director of the Food Foundation. Anna is a national and international force for good, a nutritionist by trade. She's the first ever director of the Food Foundation. Anna's worked in the Department of International Development, Save the Children, UNICEF, Department for Health, and there's probably many that I've forgot about. So Anna understands that system thinking, and that's the type of brain we need when we come to do food system work. We've been lucky enough to work with Anna for, I think, 5 years now, and work with the Food Foundation for over 5 years. And I'm glad to have her here today. So over to you, Anna.
Oh, what a lovely introduction. Thank you so much, Bradley. That's probably my best ever introduction. Thank you. That's really nice. Amazing to be following Helen. We've got so many questions for you, Helen. It was a brilliant start to the panel. So thank you very much. We're really thrilled to be working with Birmingham City Council for the last 5 or so years. And I think our relationship with the City Council began when we started thinking about some of the international learning that Birmingham could bring to other countries and take from other countries, and we started to setting up this relationship with Pune in India, and it's been an amazing journey since then. I think I certainly feel like I've learned a lot through the conversations that we've all had together, and it's just super exciting to see the food team like flourishing and now got this amazing strategy and all the great work that's unfolding across the city and bubbling up with it across the city as well. So we're really thrilled to be part of it, and I'm very much speaking on behalf of my colleague Letizia and I, Letizia Petrovic. She's online, you've no doubt all met this morning, but she's the one doing a lot of the work on our side. So I was going to just set out a few, I was asked to set out 3 of the priorities as I see them at the moment for work around food systems change at the city level. And I wanted to start with focusing really on protecting children in the context of the cost of living crisis. So obviously we as an organisation do a lot of work nationally on trying to understand levels of food insecurity and the extent to which food price inflation and other shocks are affecting households' ability to be able to put food onto the table, and particularly to put food on the table which protects their long-term health. And we've been doing national tracking. We've done about 13 rounds of data collection, and not surprisingly, we see food insecurity rates really, really climb in the last 12 to 18 months. And in fact, our last survey, which was done in July, showed that 17% of households, and in fact, and a quarter of households with children, are experiencing food insecurity at the moment. So these are really, really high numbers. And obviously, the situation as it affects children is particularly concerning, because we know that children's bodies and brains are developing on a daily basis. It's like there are sort of windows of development during childhood, which if you miss them, you miss them, and you're laying down the foundations for life. And so really thinking about, are we pulling every single possible lever that we can pull to make sure that we're protecting children as best we possibly can in the context of the cost of living crisis, is one of the things that we spend a lot of time trying to think about. And there's obviously only so many things a city can do, right? There's multiple actors involved in trying to grapple with this challenge. But one of the things that we've seen cities do really, really well are around some of the kind of key safety nets, which we have in place at the national level for very young children. That's the Healthy Start scheme, which provides vouchers for fruits and vegetables and milk for very low income families with children under the age of 4. And then free school meals, which of course provides a really vital safety net for children during the school day. And obviously these are national programmes which are to a large extent dependent on what central government departments do and how they design and fund those programmes. But also obviously they're actually implemented in communities, and the communities across the city of Birmingham. And what we're seeing now is a few different things, which I think it's quite interesting to think about. And I know Birmingham is really focusing on Healthy Start and all the different things in the implementation of Healthy Start about how we can make sure that those vouchers get to the families that are eligible for them. But at a national level, we still have a third of families that are eligible for Healthy Start are not actually on the scheme. And that's partly for a whole host of reasons, partly to do with the fact that the data sharing between the Department of Health and Department of Work and Pensions has kind of broken down essentially. And so people are not being told that they're eligible and therefore onto the scheme, but which then of course really highlights the sort of importance and significance of some of the work that community groups and the local authorities are doing to alert people to their eligibility to the scheme. That's really brilliant work. And I know Birmingham's doing a lot in that area to try and drive up those uptake rates. On free school meals, the job's harder still, I think, because we've got it's not a really expensive program when you think about some of the things which government spends money on, but relative to the resources of local authorities, it's an expensive program to feed children. So, and of course it's nationally funded. But we know at the national level that there are about 900,000, this is at England level, about 900,000 children who are living below the poverty line, but don't qualify for free school meals because the threshold for eligibility is set so low once children reach the 3rd year of school, when universal infant free school meals finish. And what we're starting to see now is popping up around the country are different, some tiny scale, some a little bit bigger, some bigger still when you look at London, but initiatives where local communities and local councils are trying to find ways to catch some of those children that are falling outside of the free school meal safety net, to ensure that those children get a decent meal during the school day, and so that they can continue their studies and all the other benefits that free school meals bring from health and developmental terms. And we're really keen to see if there's any way that we can get a little pilot or something like that off the ground in Birmingham, and talking to the team in Mandala, the research programme, which I think will feature tomorrow, about how we might be able to make that happen. Because our sense is that the more places that are trying this, we're going to learn more about how to scale up well from those different places, but also be able to show people who have the levers of power around these issues what this looks like. Sort of seeing is believing, I think, a lot of the time, in terms of really seeing those benefits that those programs bring to children, and the knock-on impacts, the wider beneficial impacts that it has in communities. So that's, I think, one slice, protecting children during the cost of living crisis. The second is around standards, really, and standards in public institutions. And we've got some really great work happening now in Birmingham around looking at the role of procurement, and how procurement can transform food environments from two aspects. One, really thinking about how you can look at ways of procuring which draw in local businesses more effectively, whether that's farmers or SMEs or other businesses that are producing food but might not typically be able to access some of those bigger contracts, and what are the mechanisms for achieving that. And then secondly, thinking about how those public settings, whether it's universities or hospitals or schools for that matter, how they can use their procurement to really improve both the healthiness and the sustainability of the menus which they're offering. This is really painstaking work on both fronts. It's difficult. You've got to wait till contacts have ended before you can start conversations about new ways of doing things, and it's complicated. It's contractual work. It's difficult. And I know the team in Birmingham, Letizia and my team, everyone, and the guys in Mandala, everyone's kind of trying to really grapple with some of these issues and work out where are some of those opportunities. And I'm really excited to see what learning that generates in the city that might have wider application, but also what are those institutions which, again, we can really showcase as being the places that have got this right. And then thirdly, the third area, which I think is interesting to explore further, and which some other cities, a number of cities actually across the country have now taken on, which is really thinking about the assets which a council or the combined authority, for that matter, have at its disposal to try and shift the healthiness of food environments, and particularly thinking about the sort of physical estate. So whether that's what's that advertising goes on buses or bus stops, to what extent the outdoor advertising is controlled by, of course, not all of it is controlled by local authorities, but some of it is. And so thinking about how you can use that to really get people excited about eating well, and also not use it as a way to sort of reinforce some of those norms around sort of high consumption of junk food and ultra processed foods, etc. So some local authorities have really been thinking about how they can follow some of the work that's been done in London around restricting the amount of advertising of unhealthy foods that happens in those public spaces. And we're really keen to see those public spaces used for doing things like promoting vegetables and fruits and so forth. And we've been supporting, well, actually we've sort of set up an organisation called Veg Power, which has been exclusively focused on using the power of advertising to get kids excited about eating veg. And it's been incredibly successful in driving up sales of veg and getting kids eating more veg in schools and at home. So those are the three areas that I thought it would be worth highlighting. Really looking forward to the conversation, and hopefully lots more will bubble up. But huge congratulations to the team in Birmingham. We're watching in awe and wonder what the amazing things you're achieving. So looking forward to the conversation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And yeah, it's so important that, I mean, and you did it really well, that demonstrating that the power of cities to showcase and kind of lever national policy, but also the fact that, you know, national policy needs to be brought to the table and kind of, you know, have to see for themselves. And that's where, you know, the Food Foundation do a fantastic job of lobbying everybody and anyone realistically in these positions of power that often don't get enough stick to come along to the table and actually listen. So thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Anne Kofolos, who is the Executive Dean of the School of Health, Sport and Food at the University College Birmingham. Anne is a true transformational leader when it comes to the city of Birmingham and the food system. And I mean, I'm going to highlight food skills and knowledge and food transformation as part of the strategy, just to keep linking it in and keep bringing Anne in, because I know Anne's been a massive help and massive influence on our strategy, and particularly in these streams moving forward. Anne is a registered dietitian, a trustee of Henry and the Institute of Health Promotion and Education, and leads the award-winning school at UCB as well. Do check out the UCB website. Do check out their restaurant. Their restaurant is exceptional. We've been working on Anne with the creative dinners, and our next two are coming up. So we've got one in November and another one in Jan, I believe, or December. It's moved. But it's been an opportunity to work closely with Anne, which has been, you know, brilliant and incredibly rewarding. So I'll just pass over to Anne.
Oh, thank you, Bradley, for such a wonderful introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here today and to be following Anna and Helen speaking. And my task for today was really to talk to you about three particular things. One, I'll just talk to you a little bit about who I am and where I'm from in terms of my location, but also at University College Birmingham. And really sort of home in on what we're doing at University College Birmingham to really look at building a systems approach to help tackling the food system challenges. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time so far, and it's been great to hear all of the inspiring speakers this morning. So I'm, as Bradley has said, I'm a registered dietitian, and I've been in academia for just over 20 years, which makes me feel really old. And you can tell that I'm not from the Midlands. I'm actually from the Northwest, but the Midlands being my home for the last 10 years. And it's been a very good home. And I've worked across the West Midlands in particular. And I joined University College Birmingham in 2020. It's just 3 years that I've been working here. And it's been great to work with Justin and the food team at Birmingham City Council, particularly in the development of the strategy. And I am a registered dietitian, and it's Allied Health Professions Day today, and I'm so important in the role that dietitians play, particularly in the food system. And it's wonderful to hear about the work that's been happening, particularly around the recipes, and I know of all that excellent work that's been going on. And really, I'm passionate about food, as the other speakers have said, but I'm very passionate about food and food poverty and social justice. And I've spent many years of my career working with homeless women and children. I worked for quite a while in Liverpool, which is part of my home, and spent time looking at what the diet and health of women and children was who were homeless. And that's something that's still very much missing. They're such a hidden population group, and it's often very difficult to access in terms of research, because they're not always in standard nutrition surveys, and with the significant growth that we've had in homelessness, particularly over the last couple of years, they really are an area of concern. And as Anna's just mentioned, in terms of the whole emphasis, particularly around nutrition and children, those really early stages of life. So And that my passion will always be on that. And I was so pleased to work to join working with the food strategy, and particularly looking at those cross-cutting themes like food security and resilience, which are very close to my heart. So you'll know University College Birmingham. Many of you, of the Birmingham College of Food. We've been very famous. Our roots trace back to the 19th century. But we actually became a full university title in 2012, but retained the title of college to really reflect our breadth of provision around further education and higher education. So we take, students from right the way from level 2 right the way through to postgraduate. So really addressing the skills needs of the local region. And particularly, as Bradley has said, we have our award-winning restaurant, which is within my school, as well as as our College of Food, which is absolutely excellent in terms of our culinary arts and our hospitality and food. And those students have been a really important part of this journey with us, and particularly in relation to our creative dinners, which I'm going to come on to shortly. So the University College Birmingham has very strong roots in food, and that was really part of our links, and part of us sharing about, how can we share this expertise that we have in the city and work together. And I've heard so much this morning about partnership working and collaboration. And that to me is fundamental. It's been fundamental throughout my career in the work, and I think it's fundamental in food, and it really represents what food is about. We share food, we're passionate about food, and it brings up so many different emotions, and it's a way of, and I think it's a great way of connecting with people. And I've heard all of those speakers this morning really highlighting that. So and particularly at University College Birmingham, we have many of those subject areas which are related to the food system, so healthcare as well as food, finance, skills and education. So we have a number of health professions programs where we actually our nurses and physiotherapists have the opportunity to work with our food students. And for me as a dietitian, that's fantastic, because we're actually using the culinary skills of trained chefs, very skilled, to work with our health profession students, which is something they really do value. So I'm going to talk to you now about about 4 key areas which I think that at University College Birmingham we've really tried to build a systems approach. And my first one is around the Creative Dinner series, and I know that Justin touched on that this morning, and we've heard it mentioned. So the Creative Dinner series is something that came about by conversation with myself and Justin and our head of the College of Food, Callie Davidson, and Lewis Walker, and we were looking at how could we, as we have the restaurant at the Birmingham College of Food, how could we draw on those skills and resources that we have to benefit the city and the region, and it would almost be a natural home for it to almost be a virtual centre, or a virtual centre of food. And we discussed we came up with discussions about how could we tackle some of these key things. So we came up with the Creative Dinner series, because we are a school, we are a university that's very creative. But actually bringing people together to share the food, but also to have some difficult conversations and address issues over food, because food does break down those barriers, doesn't it? It's about breaking down those barriers and everybody having an opportunity to have a voice, and that was something that has been really important to us in the Creative Dinner series. So we've had 3 of those so far already. One particularly, it was in November last year, around the cost of living crisis. Another one around innovation and behaviour change, which is where we had the knitted alimentary canal, and then also our farm to fork, and that's bringing in the Birmingham wholesale market. So as well as other, and I think one of the great things about the Creative Dinners is we've been able to bring together different universities, different thought leaders, really representing what the strategy is about, bringing those people together and that co-creation of what are the issues that we're going to talk about. But we've done it with a difference, and it's been with our own students, and our own students have been presented, our culinary arts students have been presented with, well, this is the theme, what is the menu, I'm working with our skilled chefs as well, our lecturers, to say, how can we put this menu together that really represents what this theme is about? And just as an example, in the first one, we actually drew upon the skills of some of our further education hospitality students and our culinary arts, and they actually prepared the dishes for the audience, and they had the challenge. So it really visually see the ingredients that we were using, and it was particularly costed on a limited budget. So the students are a really integral part of that journey, which is about their own development, and it's about what we're about as an institution, and giving them those skills to be able to work with the local communities in which they live and also which they serve. And that really does underpin the thinking of creative dinners. And the next one, as Bradley has said, is actually on food security and resilience. And I would please say, if you would like to come to one of those dinners, we may be able to have an invite for you, because we've tried to broaden the invite out as much as we can. And it's on the 6th of November. So that's just a little note for you there. You didn't know you're going to get an invitation to dinner. The next area that I'd really like to talk about is really how we've engaged in the hospitality workforce. So Lewis Walker, who was one of our food legends, he's been working very closely within the Czar for the nighttime economy, and looking at how we can support the hospitality sector, and working with the combined authority, and to look at how we can train and look at those skills gaps within the area with our chef courses and our bakery and patisserie. And so that leads me on to say, it's really important as a part of where we're at in education to make sure that we develop the workforce for the future, as well as the workforce for now. And also the workforce, the University College Birmingham is right in the centre of Birmingham, and it's about developing those skills for the future and meeting the needs. So we look at our curriculum, particularly around nutrition and future development in the curriculum. And I was talking with Sarah the other day, and we have got Birmingham food strategy at the heart of some of our programmes and to actually an experience like that for a student.
We lost you for just a moment. You can repeat the last
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said about the I think you're about to talk about the dietetics course.
Was my internet probably, sorry. Yeah, so we have some future provision, which is still under subject to approval, but we have a new MSc in dietetics, which we're currently under subject to approval, so it's not been approved yet. So I just have to say that caveat from the HCPC. But part of our plans, and we've been working collaboratively to really embed the Birmingham food strategy and that work for the city, for dietitians of the future that will work in those areas. And that comes across from our practice partners and our stakeholders of actually having dietitians that understand and actually live in those communities that they're going to work. So and that's also across our other food and nutrition provision, and that's something I'm really passionate about. And lastly, our College of Food in particular does lots of work with Incredible Surplus already, and we are working really well with it was nice to see Vicky with the Active Wellbeing Society, who are also supporting us with placement opportunities for our students. So it's really bridging that knowledge and skills back out into the workplace, but also into our local communities, and I think that's a fundamental part of education. And so I think that's probably my time up by looking at the clock.
Spot on. Thank you very much. And yeah, definitely for those who have stayed with us till the end, the benefit is you get an invite to dinner. So do let us know in the chat. So Chloe Brown, who's on the call, who works quite closely with Anne, who's part of the food system team, will keep an eye out for those people that will be interested to join. So thank you, everyone. It has been eye-opening and empowering to listen to all of you, and to kind of, oh, sorry, I do realise I've got to, how could I forget? Come back to Sarah. So I'm not going to ask Sarah to do another speech because she's already done the keynote speech today. But for those who have tuned in for this session, Sarah Pullen is the lead of the food system team at Public Health Division in the Birmingham City Council. She is the leading force behind the food system work, driving the strategy over the last, making the strategy and making it happen over the last 2 years, driving all of us in the food system team, and not driving us mad, but keeping us on our toes and thriving. Sarah, if you would like to come in to add anything, I'm not asking you to do a 10-minute section here, but if you would like to add anything.
Brilliant. Thanks, Budley. And I'm so grateful that three of you are able to join us on the panel today, because it shows just the sheer breadth of what's happening across the city, but also the complexity. But there are some really challenging issues, very challenging ones, but we can create new ways of doing things by working together. But I think sometimes the more you dig, the more you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than me. So I'm so glad we're working on some of these big challenges together. And linked to what Anne said with the careers and the opportunities, I think growing up, food systems isn't, and even food security or innovation, it's not something that was ever really talked about. Through careers advice, you'd hear about, you know, traditional things. Mine always came up like, oh, you like lots of things, you could be a lecturer. It's like that was not like, I love learning and sharing and connecting. And I think over the years I've discovered that actually there's a huge amount of workplaces where you can have a role like mine, where you get to know and connect lots of people together, and that could apply to so many fields. I've been really inspired by some of the platforms around the food system and innovation that have been popping up over the last year. So one of them is the Institute for Agriculture and Horticulture have developed a jobs platform, so you can explore all the jobs in the food sector, farming, innovation, all these different areas. And it's just like a way for you to realise what's possible, I think. Even if you're into genetics, there's like Warwick Crop Centre, and there's all these other paths you can go down in that way. Obviously, we've got people on the call today, and I'm going to call on you to share the sorts of inspiring things that you've heard about in this area. But I just think there's such an opportunity in our city with a huge population, lots of universities, lots of schools, attracting lots of people to come to our city, that we really can be a hub for the future workforce that's going to be driving this innovation and change going forward. Whether it's planning cities to be better designed for positive food environments, whether it's around food education or cooking or tackling food insecurity. So I'd just like to come to each of you, and if you could reflect on the sorts of things that you see for our future, through whether there's any other innovative career projects out there, and just what your hopes are going forward. So I'll come to you first, Helen, if that's okay.
Yeah. So one of the things is culturing a collaborative approach across all the stakeholders, you know, so trying to forge a framework amongst all the stakeholders within the food system, and developing a holistic approach to engage farmers, processors, policymakers, educators. But one thing that really it's quite important that we think about is, in terms of food safety, because that's what our area is developing a food safety culture. So a food safety culture, it's where we have shared values and beliefs and norms that affect our mindset, you know, and also our behavior towards food safety in general. So I think, you know, if we're looking at what can we do, is trying to cultivate collaboration amongst all the stakeholders in getting everyone to buy in, you know, into the vision that was shared earlier on today, and also having that food safety culture instilled even from young age, you know, so that will bring in education. So having a robust education and training programs that can start from the grassroots in our curriculum in schools, and also coming up to the university. So I think that's what my mindset is going, and what I'm thinking about at the moment. Thanks.
Brilliant, thank you, Helen. What about you, Anna? What reflections have you got?
So, I mean, I think that there's obviously, when people talk about innovation, they sort of err towards thinking about some of the amazing things that Helen and her colleagues are doing in a lab, and like discovering exciting new opportunities. But I think what the other huge opportunity we have for innovation in Birmingham is around how we do essentially like social innovation, how we get what I think you're trying to do is, with the strategy, give everybody like a North Star, and then try and foster as much leadership across the system to act in ways which take us towards that North Star. And that's hard to do, but if you can find the the ways in which you enable that to happen, that I think feels like real social innovation at the city level. And obviously you are innovating anyway as a local authority by having the investment that you've made in the food team and the ways in which you guys see yourselves as working right across, you know, engaging all the different bits of the council, where you might not be the ones that have the levers of power on certain things, but you've worked out who is, and trying to get that sort of cross horizontal sort of influencing and engagement going on. But then also, of course, how you strike the right balance as a local authority and use your convening power, but don't let that crowd out people coming forward and using the power that they have to do things. So trying to strike the right balance, I suppose, between, you know, that the business and the voluntary sector and the local authority working in an ecosystem towards the goals that you set. And I think that's the challenge. I mean, that's the kind of, you know, aspiration, I guess. I think one of the things to also think about how you innovate around is how does that connect into what's going on at the national level? Because unfortunately, a lot of the powers to change some of the things which you're trying to deal with in Birmingham, those levers of power held in Westminster. And so thinking about how you use your movement building that you're doing in the city to also impinge on, demand, highlight the need for national level action, and really thinking about those connections and really making them productive, I think is another area where you could innovate.
Brilliant. Thank you, Anna. How about you, Anne?
Well, I'm going to follow on from, obviously I'm following on from Helen and Anna, but just following on from some of those thoughts. I think we've got some evidence about what's working. So the creative dinners approach has really, I think, has been so successful because it's managed to break down barriers, but it's also really, I suppose, in a way, disrupted a little bit, because it's brought together people who perhaps aren't always brought together, and it's that way of working and actually bringing together people that we perhaps wouldn't naturally come together because of either working in different. So universities will work together on set, but not always together. And actually, and as academics and practitioners, that's what's at the heart of what we do. I think, and so that model of you know, so Anna was talking before about the, you know, that disconnect between the DWP and the Department of Health, but if we bring people together, and also put in a safe, it was Eric before that I think that spoke about safe spaces, and, you know, actually bringing those safe spaces, and having, I mean, and I meant to say before, actually, we've used to fund the creative dinners, we've used knowledge exchange funding. And we were really, as an institution, we received, as an institution that necessarily didn't always get knowledge exchange funding, we used quite a part of our funding to support those dinners. And that's been something that we've really been able to mobilise. And I think those types of events really need to continue in some other way, but we'll find a way. We'll find a way of doing that. So I would like to see those conversations and the arena and those safe spaces continuing, and I think that links up with very much with what Anna was saying about it doesn't have to always be high tech, or it can be something that actually is going, because what impresses me particularly about since I've been in Birmingham is that real the strength of partnership and collaboration, and that's really fundamental and is something to be really valued.
Brilliant, thank you, Anne. And I think reflecting on that, like, any project benefits from diversity, and that isn't just because of any type of tokenistic saying, oh, we need to be diverse. No, it's because the strengths that bringing together people from very different backgrounds, and not just in terms of the general protected characteristics, but also just general different backgrounds, different expertise, different life experiences. When you put all those different people in a room and explore a challenge, not only do you come up with ideas that you never would have thought of, but those ideas develop much quicker than they ever would have done before. And you come up with all these solutions that are so rich and so well thought out. And you don't get halfway down, like through a project, and discover, oh, if I'd done this earlier on. Those situations don't happen as often because you've had this approach of considering things from different angles to begin with. And I think it's really key within teams when we're employing people to have this, like the background of our team and the food system team. We don't like, I think we've got nutritionists, somebody from drama and English. My background's behavioural science. We also work with lots of different people on different projects. We often have people who just come from really diverse backgrounds, and it just helps with looking at a system when you have experienced all these different roles. So I think my take-home message would be to really open your doors to those like innovations and bringing people together, because it is amazing what we can achieve when we do that. Anne, over to you.
Yeah, so you just ignited something else. And I think it's also about our student population across the region. You know, I've been so impressed with the students that have been set tasks, that have been set real problems to set and have their perspective and draw on whatever their lived experiences are as well in tackling challenges that they're within Birmingham. And I think, and we know, I mean, I'm looking at Helen here as well, thinking at all of those across colleges and universities, and because that's about giving them those skills and opportunities that they don't always access, and when they try and go out and get a job, they can't because they don't always have those. So that, to me, has that added value to it as well. Brilliant,
thank you. Is there anything else you want to explore, Bradley, in the last few minutes of our session?
No, I think it's just very empowering to hear the different stories, and I think, like Anna said as well, around us within the local authority still being able to have that power to speak up and to lobby. I mean, this is why we are partners with the Sustainable Food Places. We recently were in London doing the Day of Celebration, which is an opportunity for us to showcase what we're doing with MPs. We've had elected officials and big business leaders come along to the creative dinners, and for the first time, that we've seen from the feedback that they're coming away going, "Oh, I didn't know this was going on, or I didn't hear this perspective before." They've met new groups. The identity and kind of the logo. So I mean, we are always saying to the Birmingham Food Revolution, that doesn't belong to the council. It's not ours. It's everybody who is a part of this movement. And if we can share and grow that momentum, that noise, it's hard for people to not listen, to not take notes, to not hear at every level, particularly when we've got leaders like the four people here driving the same sound, the same drumbeat, the same discourse, taking a leaf out of the private, awful, businesses that like to be very good with their marketing. Let's turn the marketing into our strength and into our weapon. I mean, it's one of the fight back. I started to crack that a little bit, and it's quite nice to see what they're doing, and we can do the same, and hopefully inspire other universities, businesses, cities, and eventually the governments will get on board and do the same thing. Because as I think it was raised at the SFP, we're a bit behind here in England. Wales, Scotland, they're a few steps ahead of us. So I think it's down to people like us around the room and the leaders here to get England forced into that space alongside the rest of the UK. So thank you very much. If there's any other questions, do put them into the chat, and we will follow up with Anna and Helen and Sarah after the session if there is any questions for them, and also to the panel, if there is anything you'd like to share, or if you'd like to share your contact details or your website, please do put them into the chat so people can go find out more about your organisations and what you've brought up today. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Okay.
Don't know if Anne had a hand up or if you're waving.
Oh, sorry.
I think I have put my email address in the chat for anyone who wants to. If we can send you an invite for the creative dinners, then please do. We just have finalised the invite, so if you send me your email, I have put it in, but I'm not sure if everybody's got it. If you can share that.
Sure. Yeah. So it is in the chat, but we'll put it out in the email out to everybody afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Okay.